Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga was the last of his kind, a man forged in struggle, refined by time, and defined by resistance. By his passing, he also reveals a truth that Kenya has perfected a strange phenomenon, something I'm calling guilt laundering. We ridicule heroes in life and glorify them in death. We trash their legacy, then flood their funerals with flowers and praises. This is slowly becoming our national ritual of hypocrisy. Welcome to Remember My Child, where faith, reflection, and truth meet the pulse of our times. I want to talk about something that sits between history and prophecy, something that touches both politics and the human spirit. I'm calling this episode F is for Freedom, the Exodus after Raila. There's a passage in Exodus 14:1-14, and that's been heavy on my heart. You remember the journey to Canaan. You know Raila and Canaan. It's the scene where Moses and the Israelites find themselves trapped between two mountains on either side, the Red Sea in front of them, and Pharaoh's army chasing from behind. This was not a coincidence. It was a setup. A setup so that both Egypt and Israel would learn something, so that the oppressor would see the power of God and the oppressed would see the truth of freedom. Everyone born before Moses, everyone in that crowd had been conditioned for slavery. They knew the weight of chains better than the shape of liberty. And when they finally stood free, what did they do? They complained. They panicked. They even begged to go back, because sometimes captivity feels safer than uncertainty. Now hold that thought, because in our own land, that story feels familiar now than ever. You see, for over half a century, the Luo people, and by extension much of the Nyanza region, have had one family as their North Star, the Odingas. From Jaramogi to Raila, the Odingas were not just political leaders. They were symbols, carriers of collective pain, resistance, and hope. For generations, belonging meant aligning with them. You didn't just support Raila, you belonged to Raila. He was Baba. Like Moses, he led his people through deserts of marginalization, through decades of political wilderness. But like Moses too, he never fully entered the promised land. And now, he is gone. And a silence sits over the land. But within that silence, something else is moving. Something called freedom. When the Israelites reached the Red Sea, they were terrified. Death ahead, slavery behind. And their first instinct, let's go back. At least there we had food, some said. You see, fear makes you forget promises. Right now, I sense that same fear in parts of ODM and Nyanza. The fear of leading themselves. The fear of losing the familiar power of the Odinga name. The fear of the unknown. And Exodus 14, in particular 13, whispers to this generation. Do not be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Maybe that's what Edwin Sifuna is doing. While others scramble for alliances or proximity to power, Sifuna stands still, calm, clear, centered. Yet he's treated like an outsider, a disruptor in a club of insiders who've only known one order, the order of dependence. Raila Odinga was the last of his kind, a man forged in struggle, refined by time, as I said, and defined by resistance. No one will ever wield the kind of influence that Raila did. He was the last bridge between Kenya's founding dream and its democratic frustrations. But even bridges must one day, every bridge must give way to a new road. Now the region stands on the edge of involuntary flight, forced to rediscover itself, forced to find new wings and fly. For decades, opportunity in Nyanza flowed through one name, but that name is now gone. And in its absence comes an awakening. His spirit. About a year ago, the Parliament of Kenya impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. It was hailed as a show of strength, but it also marked the beginning of Parliament's slow decline. Yet, paradoxically, it did something profound. It opened the country's imagination to possibilities. It showed that even the most powerful could be checked, that even a president could one day be impeached. Now, a new setup is unfolding, a setup that will test both power and conscience. I am watching Kindiki. I am watching Wanga. I am watching Sifuna. You could be watching Babu. Someone else is watching Natembea. Another is watching Kalonzo. But in all the watching that is happening, I see a conspiracy. Everything is conspiring. That death of Raila, the rise of Gen Z, the exposure of hidden ills to reveal what Kenya truly is beneath the noise. Allow me to indulge you a little in some backstory. I was born in Eastlands, Jama Hospital to be particular. My dad used to live in Jericho. And we had Luo neighbors all over. When they mourned, they wailed deeply with heart, but also with dignity. Something happened recently through Raila's death. They didn't force, back in the day, the Luos I knew didn't force others to join in. They respected space, even in pain. What we see today, looting, coercion, forced rituals, that wasn't mourning. It's an expression. It is a cry for freedom, a confusion of grief and awakening. And the message? Yes, the message is home. F is for freedom. Freedom to think, freedom to build, freedom to redefine belonging, not around a person, but around purpose. Because when you lose the one who led you, you finally discover the one who's been waiting to lead within you. As we close, remember this. Everything, the grief, the chaos, the calm, the hypocrisy, the big, glorifying, loud accolades, even conferring of honor, all is conspiring towards revelation, exposing hypocrites, exposing fake mourners, exposing guilt launderers. But here's my message. When someone kind crosses your path and turns gently to your light, something in you stirs again. Allow it to flow. This is the plant. This is the story. This is the season. This is the transition. F is for freedom. Remember, my child. Thank you for listening. If this episode spoke to you, share it. Let the conversation travel beyond politics, beyond tribe, into the deeper question of who we are becoming. Until next time, walk free. My name is Tony Shira.